Welcome back. So we're about to talk about one of my favorite parts of the process, and just to tell you a little secret, most of them are my favorite parts of the process, but this one truly is. So it is the comparative market analysis, and some of you may have heard of that as referred to as a CMA or even the competitive market analysis, but it's still all one and the same. And that's kind of the tool and the guideline that we use to set the appropriate rental price for your property. Now, a lot of you guys out there may be more used to your Zestimate from Zillow and things like that. The reason why we don't rely on those tools is because Zillow can only take into consideration the hard facts. Just the data, what this property rented for, how many days it was on the market, where it's located. You know, they can only take the hard facts. When we're doing a comparative market analysis, we're looking at that same data. But then what we're also doing is taking into consideration extenuating circumstances, like this particular landlord had X, Y, and Z happen in their family and they had to get rid of this property at the lowest possible price. So that's going to be skewing the numbers. Those sort of things. When it comes to property upgrades, those are things that we are looking at and we have a better eye on because you have that personal touch in order to really evaluate your property and properly compare it to other ones on the market. Okay, so in that comparative market analysis, one of the things we do, and that's why the complimentary consultation is so very important. Okay, it's so very important that we can actually come out to your property. If you are not local to the area, we've had it before where, you know, a friend would drop off keys to our office or there's a lockbox at the property, whatever the case may be, there are ways to get to the property. But laying eyes on your particular property is very important because now we can take that property and compare it with all other things that we normally compare it with. Okay, some of the things that we are comparing it with are the recently closed properties in your area. Okay, or in areas similar to your property. So we want to get as close to that as possible, but we're looking at those closed properties. Those closed properties are going to tell us what people have paid for the property, what they have decided this is a good rental price for this particular property. And that's very important to make that distinction because what we also look at, and a lot of times what you as a landlord may look at, are the active properties on the market. Okay, so we also have our eyes on those active properties on the market. But again, when it comes to the individual landlord that may be listening or the real estate agent, there may be times where because of that landlord situation or because of the owner situation, they may be trying to push the market, meaning set that property at a higher price, okay, in order to get more money. And that particular owner, even though you may not be aware of it, may say, okay, I'm willing for my property to sit on the market for an extra 2 or 3 months in order to get this rental amount. Whereas you and your goals may not be conducive to that because of your financial situation. So it's always very important that for active properties on the market, we still want to look at it to know what your current competition is. And if everybody is pushing the market and pushing the price from, you know, what it is from the closed properties, then that may be something we want to consider. But if that's not the case and everything else is showing that you may have extended days on the market because of that, that may not be what meets your overall goals. Okay, so we will look at the active properties on the market as well, but remember, closed properties are going to tell you what people have paid for it and have been willing to pay for it. Your active properties are going to tell you what people may pay for it, but it's not a done deal yet. So always keep that in mind. You're really looking at that just to know what your current competition is and how far you can push it, if at all possible, okay? The other things that we look at are different upgrades at your property. So if you have older appliances or newer appliances than other properties in that same kind of price point, in that same market. We're looking at your flooring. That's another main thing. We're looking at your painting. Countertops are also a thing that makes a huge difference within a property. So we're looking at all of those aspects, not only the upgrades and amenities at your properties, but what type of upgrades and what type of amenities. Because a lot of times as a landlord, you may upgrade something at your property because you think it's spectacular or because you were living there previously. Whereas the overall general market, or because of the area, they they necessarily don't have the same expectation for that particular thing in the property. So it really doesn't move your price anywhere. Okay, it's just a nice thing to have, and what it may do for you, and what we've seen more often, is it decreases your number of days on the market, but it may not cause an increase in rental rate. Okay, so it's really kind of like this balancing act that we do with the comparative market analysis. But this is one of the most important aspects in getting your property on the market, because 100% of the time, if your property is priced appropriately, it will lease in a timely manner. Okay, and that means based on location, based on your upgrades, based on how well you've maintained the property, all of those things are taken into consideration. But 100%, if it is priced appropriately, it will lease in a timely manner. You won't have to worry about that. However, if it's not priced appropriately, you will see it sit on the market. Hands down, people will pass it by. The reason why it sits on the market is because they have other options available. And people will pass it by until either it becomes one of the last options that they have available, or the only option that they have available, and then they'll choose yours. So what you want to avoid throughout this whole process is the whole pass by mentality, okay, or just the last possible option. You don't want that to be one of the things that your renters or your future residents are actually thinking about your particular property. So this comparative market analysis is very, very important. But we take and we do all that for you. We gather all this information and we put it together for you. We recommend a list price. Okay, now when we recommend this rental list price, we also recommend kind of a bare minimum you should take. So it's really a range that you get. Okay, so that means if your property has been on the market for a little bit longer than we've anticipated, we're constantly, and we do it on a weekly basis, really, we're reevaluating the market, we're reevaluating your price to make sure we're always at a good point and we're not extending your vacancy time frame any longer than you have to. Okay, if this is not done properly, you can most definitely expect extended days on the market. You can most definitely expect price reductions, okay, for your rental property. You can most definitely expect those things, and even withdrawal from the market at times. And I know that is something that's difficult to hear, but that's why this is so important. So even scheduling that first complimentary consultation could be very important for you, because this is all information. Even though it's included in all of your pricing, this is one that we do regardless. Okay, so that's the reason why we say it's complimentary for you, is because when we come out for that appointment, that is one of our intentions, is to really get a good idea of the property, know and understand it, so we can complete this comparative market analysis for you. So that's kind of like our gift to you, whether you go with our services or don't go with our services. But it is one of the most important parts of the process. And before we go here, I'll tell you just a little story. It was really funny. One of a good friend, well, she's come to be a good friend of mine, she was telling me about a property that they manage that they're now trying to sell because they feel like they haven't been able to get all the profit they wanted. And when she was telling me this story, how they listed it on the market, the first 2 days on Zillow, it was going crazy. Everybody wanted their property. And when I looked at their comparative market analysis, they actually listed their property about $600, if not more, under market value. Completely upgraded and everything, but that's something that she would not have been aware of, just off her own knowledge. And that's not something we expect you to be aware of. So again, there's a lot of little details that we're looking at and that we walk you through as a part of this process, where getting with a professional and knowing and understanding that is very important. So that is the first step in the process, is the comparative market analysis. See you soon.